why I decided to go to surgery, I honestly want to return back to activity. That's the driving factor, really. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel where I'm sharing a Achilles tendon rupture journey with you. This is part 2. I wanted to share with you imaging results, why I chose to go with surgery, things I took into consideration, and what was discussed during the pre-op appointment. So I already shared with you how it happened, why it happened, when it happened, what steps I took, and what I ended up with. In case this is just the first time you're seeing the video, I ended up getting an air boot, they call it, with a heel tilt or lift, which ensures that my foot stays in a plantar flexion position, which is basically just saying toes pointed down as a way to minimize further stress on the Achilles tendon until repair can be done. I did an MRI instead of an ultrasound. Depending on the type of tear you have, or depending on what they suspect, they may request one or the other or both. I went back a couple of days after the initial consultation to do the MRI. If you've never done an MRI, just know that it's a very noisy process because this machine is loud, hella loud. However, they do give you noise cancelling, or what they say is noise cancelling headphones, and in some instances you just play music and you lay there while they're taking the images of your specific area. Now, MRI machines tend to look very much like this, where they put your entire body in it, and if you are someone who's claustrophobic or afraid of tight spaces, it can be very stressful. Up instances where they sedate or give you mild sedation so that it runs more sleepy, I guess, so that you can stay in the machine, because you have to be very still during that process. That said, the MRI that I did only involved my foot. I did not have to go into a machine because it was my foot, so they had a big old machine, but what they did was they put my foot through this little tunnel device. I laid on my side and I did that for like 45 minutes. It was a fairly non-invasive, not scary thing. Like I said, just the noise from the machine. It's very loud and disturbing. So that's the MRI process experience right now. In terms of discussing the MRI results, initially they had my MRI follow-up was 2 weeks. A spot opened up much quicker, like a couple of days later, where I was able to go in and discuss the results with the surgeon. And while I didn't get to see the image, I did see the report, and the report showed me nothing else was impacted. There was a slight strain on my calf, but the gap was much more than 4 centimeters. So why I decided to go to surgery, most important one is how big of a tear it is. Mine was more than 4 centimeters, which is a big gap, therefore considered a complete rupture. And so that added to the case of me choosing the surgical route. But I decided to do the surgery so that my return to activity, I stood a higher chance. The chances of re-rupture lessens compared to doing the non-surgical option. Never mind the fact that the recovery time is more or less the same whether or not I chose the surgical option. So I would still have to keep my foot in the boot with that plantar flexion just to give the tendon time to heal. There's gonna be scar tissue, and then I would get into PT after a couple of weeks and then start to work on rebuilding strength. And the thing with going the non-surgical route is that yes, I would gain back mobility. However, I would have a much more limited strength. And then being a woman of 45, I'm in perimenopause, which means I have to, hormones have shifted, hormones are changing. I also have to consider the fact that I was strength training prior to the surgery and improving things like balance and stability, core-wise certainly. So I think that puts me at a better chance of recovering healthily, but also recovering more so from surgery, because I already kind of put some baseline. I already have a baseline of function and strength, that I, worked really hard on over the last 2 to 3 years. Not to mention the fact that I've had experience coming back from injury, so I kind of know the whole starting over thing. Granted, I'm not starting over per se, I'm just dealing with a new dynamic, so I have to navigate that dynamic. The other things to consider is what your health status is. So if you have, underlying conditions, those are some things you want to discuss with your primary care physician prior to choosing this route. The other thing to consider is the level of support that you're going to have, how much time you can take off from work. I work from home, my husband works from home, so I have his support. We work for us, but I work for myself. My ability to take the time off is my own. The other thing to consider is the cost. Now, with my insurance, I do have a copay prior to surgery, but then I also have to factor in the anesthesia cost, the facility costs after the surgery. And if your insurance doesn't cover that, and depending on where you are, the cost isn't minimal. It is not nothing. It can be quite significant. So I've given you my considerations, but also things that you want to consider. And then in discussion with my doctor, my downtime is going to be 4 weeks as far as, the incision, because they're going to cut the tendon, the back of my heel open, then they're going to reattach the tendon, and then they're going to stitch it up, and I'm going to have to do wound care afterwards, and I can't put any weight on it. So we're looking anywhere from minimum 4 weeks before I get to physical therapy, but also before I get to any weight bearing. So we're talking a month of no weight on this leg. Now I have a tool in place that's gonna help me with that, which I will share in the other video. But I just wanted to give you this update, the second update on where I was with the results, what the imaging said, and what we discussed. So thank you for tuning in. Come back when I share the surgery. I do have my surgery in 6 days, so I will kind of do a little mini vlog prior to going into surgery and when I come out. There you have it. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you on the next one.